Hello everyone, welcome to Big Data Thoughts. Today we are going to talk about generative AI. Now, this is something which is being talked about by everyone these days, and specifically after ChatGPT and people have started using ChatGPT. This is a very much talked about thing. So, today we are going to look at a definition of what AI is. We'll start from there. We'll talk about generative AI. We'll talk about the principle behind generative AI, which is large language models, the pros and cons of LLM. So let's get started. First of all, let's start with what is artificial intelligence or what is AI. Simply put, AI is a branch of computer science which is building machines that are capable of doing something that humans do today. Of course, AI can never reach to a level where we say it is doing 100% what a human being can do, because a human can think and act very differently in different situations, right? But AI is catching up to a level where it can actually start behaving like humans, where we are planning to, or we are targeting to program in such a way that we can do certain things that today the humans do. And since a machine has power to accumulate large number of data and look at the patterns on that data, so it is very much capable of deciding based on the history, the past data that it sees, what needs to be done. So artificial intelligence is nothing but building machines to do tasks that typically humans do today. Now, when we talk about AI, let's understand that AI is a general purpose technology. And why do I say that? Why is AI general? Because it's not meant for one particular purpose. For example, if you look at a switch in our house, it has one single functionality to turn something on or off, right? Similarly, a microwave, it's useful to cook food or to heat food. So it's very specific. But AI, I'm just giving example from our real world. But look at AI, why it is general purpose? Because it can do a lot many things. There are a plethora of use cases that are there, identified, and some are getting identified with the progress in AI, right? So AI is a general purpose technology. Okay, so this is a brief about what AI is, but now we will talk about a little bit about the history, because how generative AI came in, right? If I look at examples, web search, recommendation systems like Amazon, Netflix, web search, Google Translator, Alexa, Siri, these are all examples of AI. Specifically, Google Translator, Alexa, and Siri, they are generative AI. And when we look at generative AI, we'll understand this better. Why? So, generative AI is not something very, very new or something which has just come when ChatGPT was launched. Generative AI was always there for decades. When Google Translator came in, that was based on generative AI. But these days we hear this term quite frequently, but it has been there. Okay, now let's look at what is a generative AI, right? Now, generative AI, if we look at the overall picture and try to understand in the AI world, where does generative AI fit in? Okay, so generative AI, we know AI is a big world, and in within AI you have a number of you may say algorithms or models that are there. In AI, there is a term called supervised learning, and we will talk about it a bit more in the next slide, because that forms the basis of generative AI. So, within AI, if it is a big circle, within it is supervised learning, and there is also unsupervised learning and reinforcement. So, AI, if you want to broadly categorize into three different categories, it will be supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. But for this particular video, we'll talk about supervised learning, because that forms the basis of generative AI. So within the paradigm of AI, we have all of these things included. So first let's talk about supervised learning, then we will go to generative, because this forms the basis of generative AI. What is supervised learning? So as the name suggests, it's a learning which is supervised, which means it is of course a category of machine learning, But here, what we are doing is we are labeling data sets, and then we are training algorithms to predict outcomes and recognize patterns. So, we are feeding in tons and tons of data to our AI/ML model, asking it to recognize patterns in that data, so that next time we give an input, it can predict the output for us. So it's supervised because we are already giving it a number of a lot of data which is already labeled, which means I am giving a data to the machine model saying if input is X, the output should be Y. So I'm training it in a supervised fashion, giving the input and giving the outcome. So it knows what it will go and identify on that data, what are the patterns, and it will know for each of these input, this should be the output. That's how the category of supervised learning works. There are other categories like unsupervised, reinforcement, etc. But for generative AI, this is the basis. So let's just concentrate on this. One very simple example can be email spam. So if there are tons of emails and we want to categorize it as a spam or not a spam, just like Gmail today does, right? It's an AI algorithm running in the background which knows based on the pattern if an email comes, it tells you, right? Or it sends it to the spam folder or it tells you it's a spam. So that's a very simplistic example of a supervised learning. A data set given with labels, with input and output, so that the machine understands next time you get such an input, what should be the output. Now let's talk about what is generative AI. Since we have built the background of AI, of supervised learning, what is generative AI? Generative AI is an artificial intelligence system that can produce high quality content. It can be text, it can be image, it can be audio or video. Okay, examples we all know: ChatGPT, Bard, Bing Chat. Bard is by Google, ChatGPT is by OpenAI, Bing Chat is by Microsoft. These are all examples of generative AI. It is generating something from for us. Look at it this way: it produces high quality content, whether it is text, image, audio, or video. It is generating something for us. Now, it is actually a response based on instructions or prompt. Imagine a chat GPT where a user goes and puts some instructions or a prompt, and the chat GPT responds to it. That's generative AI. It's generating input for us based on our prompts. But that in output, sorry, it's not generating input, it's generating output based on the prompts we are giving. That output is an intelligent output. When we talk about generative AI, generative AI is just a term which is telling us what it is doing. But behind the scenes, there is a principle on which generative AI works, and that's known as LLM, or large language models. So we should definitely try to understand what is LLM, the pros and the cons, how does it work, to understand generative AI, or to understand how Bard, ChatGPT, and all others work. So, what is LLM, or large language model? This is the underlying principle of generative AI. Now, the work of an LLM model or large language model is to predict the next word based on supervised learning. So, as I said, it is supervised learning. So, if you look at ChatGPT today, how does it work? It works on tons and tons of data, terabytes, petabytes of data gathered from internet. It has gathered all of that data, and it is a supervised learning model that was used to train it. So LLM, what does it do? It predicts the next word based on supervised learning. So which means if we look at this sentence, my favorite food is bagel with cream cheese. Now this is a statement which is given to the model, and if we say that if the input is my favorite food is a, then the output should be bagel. If I say my favorite food is a bagel, output should be with. So what it is doing, it is just predicting the next word. This is a very, very simple example. LLM works very sophisticatedly actually, but basic principle is this: to predict the next word. So in this sentence, if we keep on breaking up the sentence and giving it as an input, we would expect the output to be the next word. So this is how it is trained on huge amount of text with a supervised learning to you know build that model which ChatGPT or other generative AI is used to predict or come up with an outcome. So this is how LLM would work, predicting the next word that is coming out. Now, what are the applications of LLM? Applications of LLM, if you have to broadly categorize it into three categories, it is writing, reading, and chatting. And I'll explain each of these what it means. The last one that you see, LLM software based application. So it may not always be a chat based application like we are using chat GPT or bard. It can be a software based application where you are actually injecting this LLM model within your software. So for example, if there are customer complaints or praises that are coming in to a company, it is not chat based, it is a number of sources from there they get this input. Now they want to categorize it, or they want to figure out what is actually the how many are positive out of this, what is the sentiment. They would not be using a chat always. It's a software based one which takes input as all of these feedbacks that have come in and gives us an output. So it can be that form also. But if you look at categories, there are three: writing, reading, and chatting. Chatting, we all, most of us know because we have been using chatbots like ChatGPT, Bard, etc. So it just takes a prompt and replies to you. That's a chatbot. The other form is writing. Writing means it is very good at answering questions because it has been trained on huge number of data. So what we are doing, we are giving a specific information and it can help us to find the information that we need, which means let's say there is I want to write a welcome speech for someone. So what I'll do, I'll give it specific information. I will say, okay, I want a welcome speech for an HR manager joining my company. So I'm asking it to write that kind of a thing for me, right? Or when I say that, okay, I give you like tons of information about a company, can you help me tell about how much is the company making profit or not? So I'm giving it information and asking it specific questions to come up with an answer. Similarly, there is reading. Reading means I give it a huge text and ask it to summarize for me, or ask it to regenerate or rephrase what I'm writing. So these are kind of reading tasks. Why are we calling it writing and reading? Because in one place, Chat GPT or our generative AI is reading my whole text and trying to convert it into a shorter summary. Writing is I'm giving it a prompt to write something for me. People also like ask, okay, write me a song, write me a poem on such and such situation which happened in the era of this era or something like that, right? We are giving it a writing task. So it can do both writing, reading, and this can be achieved through a chat bot or through a software based application. Now, if we specifically look at writing task, like I said, here the large language model is trained repeatedly to predict the next word, like the first example we saw. So they are very good in writing and generating words. So we can start with prompts, right? We give them prompts. Okay, give me like the examples I gave. Give me a welcome speech. Write a poem on a plant which is situated in Siberia, something like that. So we are prompting it. It can be a generic prompt or it can be a specific prompt. The more information or context we give it, it is easier for the LLM to generate the output. So if I say write a poem on plant, it is generic. But if I want something specific, I will say write a poem on plant which is of height 2 feet, which is situated in Siberia, blue, like blue in color or green in color. So the more specific I am, the better it does. Writing task can also include translations where we say, okay, this is the English text, I want to convert it or translate it in French. That's exactly what Google Translator used to do back in the days. And it was also based on generative API. But the whole concept or principle is predicting the next word for the word given. And that's what it does. So this is example of writing task. Similarly, it can be reading task. Reading task like you give a paragraph and ask the chat GPT. Of course, there is a limitation of how much text you can give, but you can ask, spell correct it, summarize it. You can plug it into a software and get things done from it. So reading task is something like summarization, spell collection, all of that, where it is reading a huge text and giving back an input to you. Similarly, the third category, or we can say reading writing, is getting performed by either a software based or a chatbot. So other task is chatbots. It can be an advisory bot, something like it says, okay, plan a vacation for me in Europe for 10 days, including places XYZ. Or you ask it for advice on career. Okay, I want to make a career in the field of archaeology in XY with XYZ inputs. You can make it specific. So it can act as an advisory bot because it has a lot of text on which it was trained. It has information about what we are asking, or it can be a customized bot. Now you can use a software based one where you customize the algorithm to talk about specifically your product, your company, right? Now one more important thing can be keeping the human in the loop, which means it may not be entirely chatbot driven. You can have a chatbot take the preliminary set of questions, and you would have seen this with many products that we buy today. If you go to a website of any product, you're buying a shoe or a cloth or whatever, it gives you an option to chat on WhatsApp. The moment you go to WhatsApp, it's a chat bot in which gives you a set of questions saying, okay, is it about refund, is it about quality, whatever, some options, and it keeps you guiding. It's a guided flow. In the end, if you still are not satisfied, you say, okay, I want to talk to an agent. That's when the human comes in. So what it is doing is it is reducing the work of the agent or the human. The chatbot is taking care of it. It can have the human in the loop only if there is a review required. Sometimes you want to send a text to the customer where you want the human to review that before it is sent, or you want an escalation matrix where the chatbot takes care of preliminary conversation and then sends it for if there is an escalation, sends it to an agent. So these are some of the flavors of chatbots that we see today: advisory, or human in the loop, or just a pure chatbot, right? So these are the three different categories in which you can actually utilize the generative API based chatbots, or the generative API models as a whole. Now we have spoken briefly about the whole concept, the pros, but let's use cases, but let's talk about the cons. There are definitely cons about this. So what are the cons? One of the biggest one which people keep talking about in terms of chat GPT also, and you would see it when you ask questions to chat GPT, it will say, okay, I was trained for data until 2022, or the time limit. So you will not get answers for exactly for the current things that are happening. So there is always a language cutoff because you are training it based on supervised learning. You're training the LLMs, and you will have a cutoff saying, as of today, whatever data is available, I'm training the model. So you have to retrain the models, and that's always been the case with the AI models that are built. So knowledge cutoff is always there. It is frozen at a point of time till it was trained. Then hallucinations. Why hallucinations? Sometimes the answers that the LLMs give or the chatbots give, you will observe it, right? If you ask chatbot something about some current event, sometimes it may say, I don't have knowledge, sometimes it will cook it up. So it does, and it says it so convincingly with some data facts which may not be true. And this kind of incident has happened and it was in New York Times, where a lawyer actually prepared a case based on some incidents given by ChatGPT, and that went wrong because they were not correct. Okay, so sometimes the data it gives back is also something creative or made up. So there is always a word of caution while using the data as is from there. There are limitations on length of input output also. The amount of prompt that you are giving, the amount of text it generates, there is a limit. Then it will not work very well with tabular data. Okay, and the last but not the least, there is a bias of course there, because it's all trained on internet text which is available, and the internet can have biases. So those biases are bound to creep into the LLM also. So these are some of the limitations. I hope this video has helped you to at least get your journey started on generative AI and what is LLM, what is generative AI. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed preparing it. Thank you so much. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to get more such interesting videos. Thank you.